unique day. It's the Ryan DeFreitas Secret Agent project is officially kind of launching, and so at the Malco tonight, as you're aware, we're screening 2 of those episodes, and many of you have reserved seats to come to that. That'll be at 7 o'clock at the Malco. We wanted to bring in our producer, who's the man who takes this from the idea to an actual project. Robert Fernandez. He is a producer of Herald Entertainment. He was born in Costa Rica, spent time in Japan, has a marvelous testimony. We don't have time for his story of how the Lord has led him in his life, but wanted to invite him to come and share with the staff this morning so that you can kind of see who's behind the project bringing this to life. So let's welcome Robert Fernandez.
Well, thank you. It's a blessing and a privilege for me to be here with everybody and share with you a little bit about what we do. In order to give you an idea of what we do at Herald Entertainment, we're both Herald Entertainment and another company called Cat in the Mill. We're the 2 behind taking the story that Jeremy and Kendra came up with and giving it some life and development. But let me start with a story. Because of the story of this father who's about to tell, he wants to tell a story to his son, a bedtime story. So he picks a really good story. He picks a story of the lost sheep from the Good Shepherd. So he sits his son down and he says, well, once upon a time there was a sheep, and he was part of this fold, and he's brought into this fold by the shepherd, and he's put into this nice pen, and everything is locked away, and the shepherd goes away, and he thinks that everything is fine, and this one little lamb goes to a fence, and sees a little hole in the fence, and so he kind of goes through, and he squirms his way through, and he looks out, and he sees freedom, and he goes out, and he starts frolicking out, and he sees the flowers, and he follows a butterfly, and then he sees the clouds, and he follows the clouds, and the little lamb just keeps going and going and going. And all of a sudden, soon after a few hours, it starts getting dark, and there's a little bit of thunder and lightning and rain. And the little lamb becomes scared. He wants to head back home. So he turns around, and he can't figure out how to get back to the fold. So he looks here, he looks there, so it's getting darker. All of a sudden night comes, and then at some point when the moon comes up, casts a shadow, and all of a sudden he turns around. There's this huge shadow looming over him. He looks up, and there's this ferocious wolf. His eyes open up, and the wolf goes down, and all of a sudden the wolf jumps up and about to pounce, when all of a sudden the shepherd's crook comes and hits the wolf. Wolf goes flying, runs away, and the lamb looks up, and there's the shepherd. The shepherd picks the lamb up, pulls the lamb really close, takes him back to the fold. The father finishes the story, and he looks, and the son's like staring at the father. Dad goes, "What do you think?" And the son goes, "Dad, didn't it ever occur to anybody to fix a hole in the fence?" And so we do 2 things at Herald and Cat in the Mill. We try to mend the hole in the fence by producing materials that are going to be helpful for kids that are already in the fold, that know about the Lord. Try to keep them in the fold, try to encourage them to stay within the fold, and why there are benefits of staying in the fold. And we create materials for the little lambs that stray and leave the fold, and we go out looking for something else and searching for something else. And that's what we try to do. And it's been a calling for us. It hasn't been for any one of us that work at Herald, Cat in the Mill. It isn't something that all of a sudden one day we got up and we said, hey, we want to do children's animation. No, there's a whole story behind it. There's a whole, it's been something that God has wanted to do. And we create materials, in some cases we create materials that are really nice quality animation, but they're a little bit beat you over the head. They're like, there's no guesswork. It's Jesus, it's here's the way you do it, here's how you come to the Lord, here's how you stay within the fold. And some parents and kids really want that. Sometimes the schools really want that. And sometimes we get requests for things that are not so beat you over the head. Because we get requests also from grandparents whose kids have basically left their faith. But now those kids have gotten married and they're starting to have their kids of their own, and those children are starting to ask questions. And there's this fine line where the grandparents want to get involved, but they said, I can't give something that's going to be too overtly Christian. This is the world we're living in. But I need something where I can begin to feed my grandkids. And I can start giving them something that has some sort of seed that will eventually bring them to the Lord. And when you do something usually for children, if you do it well, you usually get the adults. We have created, well, the Lord through us, by God's grace, has created sometimes materials that are even used for adult formation, but they were created for children. And so in some cases, we do, again, the beat you over the head, we do the ones that are a little more subtle, and then sometimes we do things that are just meant to highlight the gifts that God gives, such as the thing what we're doing with Ryan DeFreitas. And Ryan DeFreitas, anybody that we've shown it, we started to show it to TV executives, it always brings a smile to people's face. They always laugh, they feel something is going on there that they like. And so we're working on the first season of 13 episodes to start presenting also to Netflix. And it's got its place. I was telling Jeff a story this morning about one time I was working in Mexico and I produced this children's music. It was a cassette in those days, and it was just songs for bedtime. It was songs that were all about talked a little about angels, talked a little about Jesus and all that. But it was just very, very subtle. It was just songs to help the kids just calm down and go to sleep. And somehow or another, the owner of a group of Hilton hotels in Guadalajara had gotten a hold of the tape and was playing it to his kids that morning for breakfast, one morning for breakfast. And he gave me a phone, he called me up, and he goes, look, you're the person behind me, I want to talk to you, can you come to my office? So I went over, he says, we were listening to this for breakfast, and my kids were noisy and everything, and I was having my breakfast with them. He says, but all of a sudden, I started listening to the music, and I started listening to the songs. And the more I listened to it, the more I wanted to listen to it. After a while, because I took the cassette out, my kid went to school, and I went into my study, and I kept listening to this tape. And the more I listened to this tape, because I started thinking about a lot of things that I had done wrong in my life. Because, and then, before I knew it, because I prayed, and I started asking God to help me, and something happened to me, and I don't know what it is. So I wanted to talk to you about it. And the reason I bring this up is because the type of work that we do and the type of work that you do has a real impact. And I know, for example, every single day I work with computers and I work with my phone and I'm constantly looking at papers. And it's very easy to forget the individuals and the people that are on the other end of what we do. It's really, really easy because our lives are very, very busy. When I was 8, I went to talk to my dad one day, and I said, Dad, my big question when I was a kid was, why do I exist? I was 8 years old. Okay. My dad, who I didn't know at that time was having a crisis of faith, and has recently come to have a real close relationship with the Lord, at that point said, what? You know, go play. What are you talking about? You know, go play. My question was a real sincere and genuine question that really led me on a quest. And I was just a kid. I was just 8. There was a lot of stuff going on at the time that I was growing up in California in those days. There was a lot of things that were going on in society. There was a lot of stuff that was going on in my school. And it got me thinking, and it got me wondering. And I was a kid, but I could think. And eventually, when I was 14, I went to I was out at a party, and I came back home. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and I turned on the radio, and I was listening to a rock station, and they were doing interviews in Sunset Strip, Sunset Boulevard. So they're going around, they're asking young people all these questions, and of course everybody's getting these real stupid answers. It was just meaningless, right? Well, one guy, I don't know who he was able, he took the mic, I guess, and in about a minute said something about Jesus. I don't know how he said it. I can't remember what he said. But I can tell you that at the moment that I heard it, I knew that this guy was not talking about the Jesus that I was just hearing about at church or in sermons. It was different. It was different. And before they took the mic away from him, he gave this one verse, which was Revelations 3:20, behold, I stand at the door and knock. I didn't get into the theology of what he was talking about or anything. And I almost turned off the radio because I wasn't so keen on religion at that point. I had been searching for a while, and I was like, I don't know if this is it. I believed in God. I did. I believed in God, but I believed that I felt that God was too far removed from us. So it wasn't a point of like, oh, I don't believe in God. It was more, and there was one point that I prayed, if you want to call it that. I was like, God, I believe you're around, but you're so far away from everything that it makes no difference to me. And I'm from Latin America, and when I share that testimony with Latins, they always go, you said that to God? And it's like, and it is it's a very presumptuous thing to say, but as a kid, I was around 11 when that happened. As a kid, I really felt that God smiled that day, because that was a genuine prayer. It was, look, I don't know. I know you're there, but where? And what does it have to do with me? And I'm still confused. When that person gave that verse, and I'm not by any means saying that the movie that I'm about to say is a good movie. It's a terrible movie, but it's the way I relate to it. Some movies by Quentin Tarantino, who does not make good movies, sometimes will show a bullet coming out of a gun, and you see the bullet go, shoo, and then it stops and goes, and then the camera goes around to kind of build up the drama, what's about to happen. When that person gave that verse, that's what happened. Everything stopped, and it was in a second. And these things happen only the way the Holy Spirit can do it. Only the Holy Spirit can take a second, and in 1 second, do something that is like an encyclopedia to your heart. And when that happened, that little bullet, that verse, just went like this, and it's been frozen in my heart and in my soul forever. And I went into my room, and I sat down on my bed. By that time it was like 11:30 at night. And I just said, Jesus, if you're here, show me why I exist. And I can't explain the theology. At that point, I didn't understand the theology of what was going on, but at that moment, it was like my room was under the ocean, and the ceiling burst, and the pressure of all that just came flooding into my room, but it was the presence and the love of God. And it was more solid than the walls around that room, than the floor, than anything. It was there. And somehow I knew that the moment Christ died on the cross, that he died for me. I knew he died for humanity, but he died for me. He was aware that I was going to live. And it didn't answer my question of why I was on earth or why I existed, but it answered one question, and that was, there's a reason and a purpose for it. And that night, it was like God, it was like cattle that's being branded, and it was like, and it was like God saying, you're mine. And I've gone through a lot of things in my life, a lot of ups and downs through my life since that one night. But the power of what it did in my life altered my life forever. And as a result, the lives of the people that I've encountered, the things that God has had me do, which a lot of things have been by faith. Well, it's been like being put in the, in a sling and just going thrown out, and all these amazing things have happened, and some very wonderful things and some very difficult ones. But the point is, what we do when we go to work today, the people that I work with, the guys that are working on the animation is tedious. Animation is one little thing at a time, whether it's computerized animation or whether it's traditional animation, and we do both. And believe me, it is tedious. It's like moving a head and going, and that took, 3 hours. Okay, all right, so did you get the expression right? A lot depends if it's animated or, CGI or if it's traditional animation. But regardless, it takes time. You're bringing life to a character, you're bringing soul to a character. And we constantly have to remind ourselves of that one individual like us, one individual like me, who is listening, and who may not even be looking to know what the answer is, but God knows. We've had, recently there was one animator who, we were working on another project called, that we just finished a trilogy of 3 films on the Gospel and the Book of Acts. And this one animator who, I didn't know this, he came to talk to me during Christmas. He was working on we were doing a scene where Jesus was being scourged. And when you work on an animation scene, we have about 100 people working in our studios. And so a certain segment of a production could be assigned to an individual, and they're just working on 10 seconds or 30 seconds of that particular segment. Well, he was working on the segment with the soldiers, whip and Christ and the blood and the whole thing. And he came to talk to me, and he says, look, you don't know this. He goes, but I used to, he goes, until very recently I was living under a bridge. And I was like, what? What do you mean? He goes, yeah, he says, my parents are pastors. And said, I took a wrong turn. And I got involved with drugs, I got involved with this and that and the other. He goes, and I just went downhill until I couldn't even pay rent. He goes, and I was living in a bridge. And I heard that you guys were hiring people, and somebody told me that I should come take a test because I've had the experience in the past with this. And he did his test and he passed and he was hired. And he said, and I didn't realize that I was going to be working on so many things that had to do with this type of subject. But when I started working on the scourging, I realized it was every day I would come in and I would turn my computer screen. There was the Lord, there was Jesus, and there was the whip, and there was the blood. And he goes, I realized every single day I was faced with how much Jesus suffered for me. Mm-hmm. And he goes, and as a result, I've come back to the Lord. And he goes, my whole life has changed. And he goes, my parents want to thank you. Of course he said, well, I was overwhelmed. He was telling me this. I was waiting for a cab, and so I was getting ready for a flight, and I was floored. And I said, well, look, anything. Our whole motto is like anything that's good is the Lord, and we take the blame for all the other stuff. So if anything like that happened, you can just thank the Lord, and really your parents' prayers, because his parents were really, really praying for him. So this is sort of the ripple effect of what we do. And with Ryan DeFreitas, which we're very excited about, Ryan DeFreitas has been a little bit different from some of the things that we've worked with. I don't know how many of you have actually seen it. You'll see it tonight, but we're really, really excited about it. We're really excited with Jeremy and Candace Wright. They really do a good job, and it's done in such a way that it brings joy to kids and to adults. People really laugh at it. I know we do. And like I said, we've shown it to different executives. I was just at Kids Screen, I was at Cartoon Connection in Canada, and we've shown it to Cartoon Network and a few other places like that where we'll see how it goes. But they're looking for material that's going to resonate with kids, and we really feel that this will resonate with kids. We've still got a ways to go to finish the first season, but we're on our way, and we're looking forward to being able to work on the second season. And so it's a privilege for us. It's a real big blessing, and we know that the way that God has used a lot of the other things that we've worked on, that He'll do the same thing with this one. And anyway, we appreciate your prayers and appreciate being able to work with you. And I just realized that clock is not moving. I thought maybe it's happening all over again where the Holy Spirit stops everything. I don't think it's moved the entire time I've spoken to you.
Let's do this with you.
Sure. All right.